Have you ever questioned the words of someone you trust? Imagine standing on the shore of a calm sea, only to notice subtle ripples that hint at an unseen disturbance beneath the surface. In life, those ripples often take the form of lies, small, almost imperceptible at first, but capable of eroding trust like waves on stone. The Stoics taught us to seek truth, not just in the grand philosophies of life, but in the small, everyday interactions that shape our reality. Yet, even the most vigilant among us can be deceived, not because the signs of dishonesty aren't there, but because we choose to look away. Why? Because we yearn to believe in the goodness of those close to us, our friends, partners, and family. We want to trust, even when the evidence whispers otherwise. I too have stood in that uncomfortable space, torn between suspicion and loyalty. The clues were there: nervous laughter, over-explained stories, and the subtle tension that creeps into someone's voice when they're hiding something. But I dismissed them, telling myself it was nothing, until the truth became undeniable. Lies are everywhere, not because people are inherently bad, but because they fear judgment, conflict, or losing what they hold dear. The Stoic response isn't to despair or grow cynical, but to cultivate wisdom, to observe without attachment, and to recognize the signs without letting them rule us. So, if you're ready to sharpen your perception and embrace the clarity that comes with understanding human nature, let's explore the 7 undeniable signs of deception. Prepare to uncover what lies beneath the surface. It may challenge you, but it will also empower you. Stay with me, because the truth is worth the effort. 1. Quick to change the subject. Have you ever been in a conversation that felt more like a game of dodgeball? You bring up something important, something close to your heart, and suddenly, like a magician pulling a disappearing act, they steer the conversation elsewhere. It's as if they had an escape plan ready, dodging the moment things started to get real. Let me paint you a picture. I was once in a relationship where this happened all the time. Whenever I tried to discuss something meaningful, like our future plans or how we'd navigate challenges together, they'd quickly redirect the conversation. I'd ask, "Where do you see us in a year?" And before I knew it, we were talking about what to order for dinner or a random video they saw online. It was subtle, even disarming, and at first I let it slide. I told myself they just weren't ready for the conversation, or worse, that I was being too intense. But here's what I've come to understand. Avoiding hard conversations isn't just about discomfort. It's about responsibility. People change the subject not because they're forgetful or distracted, but because facing the truth is challenging. And we, in turn, enable this avoidance because we fear being seen as pushy or demanding. We trade honesty for the illusion of peace, but that's a dangerous bargain. Stoicism teaches us to value truth over comfort, to confront reality even when it's difficult. Avoiding the truth doesn't just sidestep a tough topic. It erodes trust and chips away at the foundation of a relationship. A lie doesn't always wear the mask of spoken words. Sometimes it hides in what's left unsaid, in the shift of a conversation, in the silence that follows a redirection. When I look back, I see the damage I allowed. Every time I let the subject change, I gave silent permission for dishonesty to creep in. I chose to maintain the calm instead of demanding clarity. But peace built on avoidance is fragile. It doesn't stand the test of time. Here's the lesson. When someone consistently changes the subject, it's not just an innocent habit. It's a sign they value their comfort more than your clarity. If someone truly values the relationship, they'll face the hard conversations, no matter how uncomfortable. So don't settle for avoidance disguised as harmony. Set a standard for honesty, and if someone can't meet it, ask yourself, is this the foundation of trust you want to build on? Because truth, however uncomfortable, is what strengthens bonds, not the comforting illusion of a lie. 2. Listen to understand, not to respond. How often do we truly listen? Not just hear the words, but absorb them without planning our reply, without crafting a response before the other person has even finished speaking. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, genuine listening has become a rare and precious gift. Here's a hard truth. If you're not listening to understand, you're not really listening at all. Most of us are guilty of this. We nod along, feigning attention, but our minds are busy assembling the next thing we want to say. And people notice. They feel the disconnect. They know when your attention is elsewhere, and it leaves them feeling dismissed and invisible. The Stoics believed in living with intention and presence. To listen is to be fully present, to suspend your ego and step into the other person's world. When you do, something profound happens. You build trust, connection, and understanding. I remember a time when this truth hit me hard. A friend of mine was going through a difficult breakup, and I invited them over to talk. My instinct was to offer solutions, to jump in with advice that I thought would fix their pain. But something stopped me. Instead, I made a conscious choice to just listen. No interruptions, no opinions, just my full attention. At first, they hesitated, speaking cautiously, as if expecting me to cut in. But as they saw that I wasn't there to judge or fix, they began to open up. By the end of the conversation, they looked at me and said, "I've never felt so understood." That moment taught me a timeless lesson. People don't always need answers. They need someone willing to hold space for their truth. In the noise of modern life, where everyone is shouting to be heard, true listening is an act of rebellion. It's a way to show respect, care, and humility. People don't crave constant advice, they crave understanding. They want to feel seen, valued, and heard. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation, pause. Resist the urge to plan your reply. Instead, focus entirely on what the other person is saying. When you listen to understand, you're not just being polite. You're building a connection that transcends words. Remember, real magic happens when you make someone feel truly seen. And that starts with the simplest yet most powerful act, listening. 3. Defensive without cause. Have you ever asked someone a harmless question and been met with an over-the-top, almost theatrical reaction? You might say, "Hey, did you grab the last slice of pizza?" And suddenly, you're hearing a defensive monologue. "Why would you even think that? I would never do something like that. How dare you accuse me?" The reaction doesn't match the situation. It's like they're trying to hide something much bigger than a slice of pizza. This is what Stoics would call a sign of inner turmoil. Overreacting without reason is often a mask for guilt. A person with nothing to hide has no need to act as though they're on trial. I remember a group project I was part of, where one teammate always got weirdly defensive whenever we asked for an update on his work. I'd say something simple like, "How's the report coming along?" And he'd immediately bristle, "Why do you think I'm slacking off? I'm working really hard, okay? Stop micromanaging me." Meanwhile, he'd been spending most of our meetings scrolling through his phone. It wasn't long before we discovered the truth. He hadn't done much of anything and was trying to deflect attention away from his lack of effort. This kind of defensiveness is like smoke. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire. People who overreact to simple questions often reveal more about their state of mind than they realize. The Stoics taught us to observe without being swayed by others' emotions, to step back and ask, what are they protecting? If someone reacts calmly and transparently, they likely have nothing to hide. But defensiveness without cause is often a sign that guilt is lurking just beneath the surface. Here's the deeper truth. Guilt manifests as resistance. People with something to hide will do everything in their power to steer you away from the truth. They might try to make you feel intrusive or out of line, hoping you'll back off and leave them in peace. But the Stoic path is one of clarity and courage. When faced with overreaction, we don't have to match their energy or feel guilty for asking. Instead, we remain steady, curious, and resolute. Think of it this way. Their defensiveness is like a locked door. They're hoping you'll give up and walk away, but you're holding the key. Don't be afraid to turn it. Push gently, not to attack, but to uncover the truth. Because in the end, honesty is worth far more than false comfort. Over-polished details. Have you ever heard a story so perfectly crafted that it felt more like a movie script than real life? Every detail fits too neatly, the timing is impeccable, and the flow is seamless. So much so that your intuition whispers, "This is too good to be true." Chances are, it probably is. Let me share an example. There was a guy I once knew, let's call him Jake, who had a knack for storytelling. He didn't just recount events, he painted cinematic scenes. One time, Jake told us about closing a big business deal. He described everything in stunning detail: the exact time he signed the contract, the way the city skyline gleamed as he shook hands with the client, and the triumphant feeling of sealing the deal. You could practically hear the orchestral score swelling in the background. But here's the problem. Reality isn't a polished production. Life is messy and unpredictable, and when someone's story is too smooth, it's often a sign they're fabricating or embellishing the truth. Sure enough, when we dug a little deeper into Jake's tales, cracks started to appear. Half of his story was exaggerated, and the other half was pure fiction. Why do we fall for these stories? Because we love narratives that make sense. Humans crave order in chaos, and liars exploit that. They know we're drawn to stories that are tidy and satisfying, so they present a version of reality that feels just right. The Stoics, however, remind us to embrace life's imperfections. Truth is rarely perfect. It's often messy, awkward, and incomplete, and that's what makes it real. When someone over-polishes the details, they're not just trying to impress you, they're trying to control the narrative. They craft a version of events that serves their agenda, expecting you to accept it without question. They play the director, the writer, and the star of their own story, hoping you'll applaud instead of probing deeper. But here's the thing. Liars can rehearse a story, but they can't handle follow-up questions. When you press for more details, the facade begins to crumble. Those crisp, perfect edges blur, and the flawless tale unravels into the messy truth they were trying to hide. The deeper lesson here is to embrace the chaos of real life. Truth doesn't need to be polished to be valuable. In fact, it's the imperfections that make it genuine. The next time someone tells you a story that feels a little too perfect, don't just sit back and admire it. Ask questions, challenge the narrative, and remember, real honesty is raw, messy, and unafraid to reveal its flaws. Because in life, perfection is an illusion, and those who sell it are often hiding something they don't want you to see. 5. Body turned away from you. Have you ever noticed someone talking to you, but their body subtly angles away as if it's trying to retreat? Their words might say, "I'm here," but their posture whispers, "I'd rather be anywhere else." It's a quiet, almost invisible signal, but one that speaks volumes if you know how to listen. I remember a friend of mine who did this every time we got into serious conversations. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe he just liked sitting a certain way. But over time, a pattern emerged. The moment we touched on something personal or uncomfortable, his body would start to turn, as though he was physically trying to escape. Eventually, the truth came out. He'd been lying about some small but meaningful things. His body revealed what his words were hiding. Here's the Stoic truth: the body doesn't lie. While words can be rehearsed and carefully chosen, body language is raw and instinctive. When someone turns their body away, even slightly, it's often a subconscious attempt to create distance, not just physically, but emotionally. It's their way of shielding themselves from the discomfort of the truth. Unfortunately, most of us dismiss these signs. We tell ourselves it's no big deal, that we're reading too much into it. But ignoring these signals is a mistake. When someone angles their body away mid-conversation, it's not just restlessness. It's a reflection of their inner state. It's a signal they're uncomfortable with what's being discussed, and deep down, they're trying to avoid confrontation. The Stoics teach us to observe life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Body language is one of the purest forms of communication because it bypasses the filters of intentional speech. If someone can't face you directly, it's not just about comfort, it's about avoidance. Their body is speaking the truth their words won't admit. What I've learned is this: when you notice someone turning away, don't let it slide. Use it as a cue to ask the harder questions, to probe deeper, and to uncover what's beneath the surface. Yes, it might feel awkward at first, but ignoring these signs only allows the distance to grow, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Honesty doesn't turn its back on you, and neither should the people you trust. So, the next time you sense someone angling away, pay attention. It might be their way of hiding something they're not ready to face. And if you value truth, don't let the moment pass unexamined. 6. Laughing off serious topics. Have you ever tried to have a meaningful conversation only to have the other person laugh it off as if it were nothing? You're opening up, sharing something deeply personal or addressing an important issue, and they respond with a chuckle, a sarcastic quip, or a joke. At first, it might seem harmless, maybe even charming, but let me tell you, when someone consistently laughs off serious topics, it's often a sign they're hiding something. I learned this the hard way in a past relationship. I'd bring up important issues, hoping for an honest dialogue. I'd say something like, "I've been feeling disconnected lately," and the response, laughter followed by, "You're overthinking it, relax." At first, I convinced myself they were just trying to keep things light. But over time, I noticed a pattern. Anytime the conversation got too real, it was met with humor, sarcasm, or deflection. That laugh wasn't just a reaction, it was a shield, a way to avoid accountability and sidestep uncomfortable truths. Here's the Stoic insight: humor can be a wonderful tool, but it can also be a weapon. When used to deflect from serious topics, it's like wrapping a lie in something shiny, hoping no one will notice. And because we've been conditioned to see humor as positive, we let it slide. We don't want to be the one to ruin the mood or press too hard, so we drop the conversation. But the truth? Real conversations, the ones that matter, aren't supposed to be easy. They're meant to challenge us, to make us uncomfortable, and to bring us closer to the truth. When someone laughs off those moments, it's not just avoidance, it's a refusal to engage with what's real. What's even deeper is what this behavior reveals about emotional maturity. People who laugh off serious topics are signaling one of two things. Either they're not ready to have an honest conversation, or they're actively trying to bury something they don't want uncovered. It could be fear of vulnerability or the weight of their own guilt. Either way, the message is the same. They're avoiding, not engaging. I've seen this time and again, and here's what I've learned. You don't have to accept it. If someone laughs off an important conversation, call it out. Ask, "Why is this funny to you?" A simple question like that can expose the underlying discomfort or deflection. The Stoics teach us to value truth over comfort, and that means staying steady even when others try to laugh away the gravity of a situation. The real danger of laughing off serious topics is that it shuts down the conversation before it can even begin. It's like putting up a barrier to real communication, leaving everything unresolved. Without honesty, trust and connection can't grow. And if someone avoids serious conversations with humor, they're not just dodging one moment, they're dodging the foundation of a deeper relationship. Honesty isn't always fun, light-hearted, or easy, but it's necessary. So the next time someone tries to laugh off an important discussion, don't let it slide. Press on. Ask the hard questions. Real trust is built on truth, not jokes. And if they can't drop the act, they're showing you they're not ready for honesty or for the kind of connection you deserve. 7. Vagueness when pressed for specifics. Have you ever asked someone for details only to have them respond with a fog of ambiguity? You press for specifics, names, dates, facts, but instead you get vague answers wrapped in grand gestures, as if they're spinning poetry instead of telling the truth. It's frustrating, isn't it? But more than that, it's a massive red flag. When someone can't give you clear answers, it's often because they're hiding something. Let me share a story. I once worked with a colleague, let's call him Adam, who loved to talk about the big deals he was supposedly closing. At first, it was impressive. His stories were full of excitement and ambition. But when anyone asked for specifics, like the companies involved or how far along things were, his answers became a masterclass in evasion. "Oh, we're in the early stages, can't share too much, but trust me, it's huge." Weeks passed, and every time we checked in, it was the same vague story. Eventually, the truth came out. Not only was there no deal, but he'd fabricated most of the story to impress others. Here's the Stoic insight. Vagueness is a liar's best friend. It allows them to escape accountability, slipping away like smoke every time you think you're getting closer to the truth. Honest people don't need to dance around questions. They're clear and direct because they have nothing to hide. When someone consistently avoids specifics, it's not just secrecy, it's deception. And yet, most of us let this slide. Why? Because we've been conditioned to avoid confrontation. We don't want to seem rude or demanding by pushing for answers. But the Stoics remind us that we must value truth over comfort. If something feels off, you owe it to yourself to dig deeper. Now, let's get real. We've all been vague at times. Maybe we weren't prepared, felt cornered, or didn't want to admit we didn't know something. But there's a difference between occasional uncertainty and deliberate evasion. Honest people own up to their limits. A simple, "I'm not sure right now, but I'll check," is worlds apart from someone throwing out fluff to sound in control. The real danger of vagueness lies in its ability to erode trust. When someone won't give you straight answers, they're undermining the foundation of your relationship, whether it's personal or professional. Worse, they're counting on your good nature to let it slide. They bank on you feeling too awkward to press harder. But here's the thing, when that awkwardness creeps in, that's your cue to double down. When someone gets uncomfortable or evasive after you ask for specifics, they're signaling their discomfort with the truth. They might be hiding fear, guilt, or insecurity, but at the heart of it, they're avoiding honesty. And the Stoic path teaches us that clarity, though uncomfortable, is essential for trust. I've learned to stop letting vague answers slide. If you want to know whether someone is being straight with you, watch how they respond to detailed questions. Do they offer clear, direct answers, or do they dodge with broad statements and empty words? If it's the latter, it's time to dig deeper. And if they still can't give you clarity, it's a sign they're not being truthful. Here's the deeper takeaway. Honesty doesn't hide behind ambiguity. It's clear, direct, and unafraid of details. When someone refuses to be specific, they're building a wall to obscure the truth. And if they won't tear it down for you, you have to ask yourself, what are they trying so hard to protect? The next time someone gives you a vague answer, don't let it slide. Push for clarity. You deserve honesty, and anyone who respects you will be willing to give it. Vagueness might seem small, but it's often the start of bigger issues, ones that can corrode trust faster than any blatant lie. Because at the end of the day, real connection and trust are built on clarity, not the fog of half-truths. And you deserve nothing less. Here's the truth. Lies don't always come dressed as blatant deceit. More often they hide in plain sight, in vague answers, overly polished stories, awkward laughter, and subtle evasions. But when you start paying attention to these quiet signs, the truth becomes much harder to hide. Don't shy away from asking the hard questions. Don't settle for half-truths or allow ambiguity to erode your trust. At the end of the day, you deserve honesty, raw, unfiltered, and real. And those who can't give you that? Perhaps they're the ones you need to step away from. Stay curious, stay bold, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. Because the more you cultivate clarity and wisdom in your life, the stronger and more resilient you become. Remember, as the Stoics teach us, facing the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is always the path to growth. If this video resonated with you, let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you spot dishonesty in your life. And if you haven't already, hit like and subscribe to join a community that values wisdom, truth, and self-improvement. Until next time, keep sharpening your perception and embracing the challenges that lead to deeper understanding. The next video is one you won't want to miss. It's all about how to navigate conflict with Stoic composure. Stay strong, and I'll see you soon.